Right. The busiest trade window the IPL has ever seen, possibly the buzziest retention cycle the tournament has ever seen, at least in ahead of a mini auction. But all the rumors can be quieter now. The official announcements are out. We are done with what was one heck of a retention trading window. And here we are with Chatter live ahead of an IPL auction, which will now see one team come in with 2 crore and one team come in with 64 plus crore. So there is so much to unpack. It's a big day. So we've got the heavy duty Matt Roller joining us with the usual Chatter crew, Raunak, Dustin, Nagraj. Welcome, gentlemen. I don't have time for pleasantries because I'm still trying to digest the bigger development right ahead of this show of ours that Andre Russell will not be at KKR, at least not unless they buy him back. Nagraj, did anyone see this coming?
This morning I saw it coming. Tried very, very, very hard with our man, our good friend, who hopefully is listening, and I'm still waiting for him to talk to us or tell us. I don't think he's. I don't know whether he's yet talked to Venki Mysore exactly what's happening, but mildly surprising in a way because considering we need to keep in mind that this thought did pass KKR's mind last year too. If we did our charter, we did mention that, we did talk about that. At that point, probably KKR were looking at buying Russell at a cheaper price, I think, and they did kind of think of releasing him, but at the last minute, that decision was changed. This time, I really don't have any credible information, so it would be, I do not know whether the player asked to be released because this happened, I think, potentially in the last 24 hours, this kind of a talk. So till yesterday, I think it was more leaning towards retention, Dre being retained. But I think the franchise might have thought about with the purse that they're going in, which is a half the salary cap of 125 crores. They're going with 60 crores. They can easily buy him back. They can, but it's not buying him back. I think they have seen that, probably they've seen something. They know something that maybe Dre wants to kind of try out something, and they wanted to maybe buy back Dre at a cheaper price or retain him at a cheaper price. So yeah, that could be it. As of now, that's the only info I have.
Dustin?
No, I mean, I'll say this right now that if Dreras is bought for a cheaper price, I mean, I will never be on Chatter again. There's no way that he's going to go for less than 12 crore. It's just not possible in a mini auction with the kind of purses that other teams have. I think what Nagraj touched upon is probably most likely that maybe this actually came from the player. This came from Dreras. It did seem last season he wasn't he wasn't the most happy in terms of where he was batting and the role that he had. Maybe he's just said that, look, I'd like to be released. I think even last season, right, Nagraj, there was some talk during the retentions that he wasn't too happy with the kind of price that he was being retained at, the 12 crores. So maybe that has come up again, and maybe he just feels like with all these changes in management, I don't want to be here anymore. Because the thing with Russell is, I don't see how you could release a player like that for 12 crores. Yes, he hasn't been in great form with the bat even since the IPL, but he's been bowling. His bowling fitness is there. He's bowled in MLC, he's bowled in CPL, taken quite a few wickets actually, and it's a very surprising move. And I mean, I have no information on this, but my instinct says that it came from Russell.
Who wants to take that forward? Raunak?
I'm shocked. I'm very shocked. If it's come from Russell and if it's a price point issue, I'd be even more shocked. This is the franchise that has given Russell so much. And yeah, okay, I'm not one for being sentimental about it, but that for me doesn't add up. I think the franchise would have given him some kind of instruction or direction on whether they just want to go in a different direction. And even as far as if this is about buying back, this is not about buying back. Russell going into the auction is no longer about buying back. At 64 crore, if you keep on Russell for his 12 or whatever it was that you still go into the auction with the maximum purse. You could have had a KKR squad with Andre Russell and Cam Green to go with Sunil Narayan, and maybe you sacrifice the overseas keeper for an Indian keeper, or you play that around. But I didn't see this coming. I thought Russell would play his final days of the IPL at KKR, and even after maybe just jump in from player to mentor, or stay on that bench like Kyron Pollard. So I think this is, and I think he still has one season in him, or 1.5 seasons in him to cause some serious damage, and it might well be for Delhi Capitals, for Sunrisers. There are a couple of teams there in that 15-20 crore balance purse that don't need much to do, and if you put Andre Russell in that, who knows what that looks like. So I can totally imagine Andre Russell hitting the winning runs at the Eden Gardens next year against.
I had made a note as to how long it'll take before Cam Green's name comes up on this show. It finished, if my count is right, at the 5-minute, 20-second mark. And surely, Matt Roller, this release means that we could almost pen it down. Cam Green to KKR.
Well, yeah, and I think it's going to be for massive money as well. I think it obviously depends a little bit on what the set order is at the auction, but I think there's a world in which Cam Green is going for, he could even break the Pant record. I don't see why, if he comes out early, CSK, for example, with the massive purse that they've got left, why they wouldn't just keep pushing KKR up and up and up and up, because they know that they've got enough money that they're going to get him regardless of the price tag. So, yeah, assuming Green goes into the auction, and I'm sure KKR wouldn't have made this move without sounding Cam Green out for his availability and for confirmation of that. I think it's going to be big money for Cam Green, and I think, almost certain for KKR as well.
But we should keep in mind, let's not jump the gun. Cam Green, we spoke about this. He needs to bowl. He's not going to fetch the money as a batter. He needs to bowl if he needs to be the all-rounder. And so I think he'll be more under pressure from IPL franchises than playing the Ashes, I guess, at the moment. So I don't see Cam Green, the batter, getting that money. But yeah, Cam Green, the all-rounder, yes, 100%.
All right. I'm sure there'll be a lot more referencing to Cam Green. If you're just joining us on this broadcast, the second half of the show, wait for the back half hour. We'll be discussing every team and what we imagine they need going into the auction. But we will first cover up on the big talking points and the storylines from this final deadline day. Nagraj, I just want you to cover the KKR story on the whole, because it's unthinkable. I mean, I can't say this as fact, but I'm fairly certain that no team has ever gone into a mini auction with a pool of 60 crore plus. Even as recently as last night, when we were trying to consider what kind of purse they'll be with, we thought it'll be in a 40-45 range perhaps. So what have you gathered about what all has gone down at KKR that has led to this, what we can now call an exodus?
I think we discussed most of the other names that has not changed. The numbers added up to close to in the vicinity of 40 plus bracket, and you add 12 more, so it goes, and then you add 5 more from the fresh purse. And when your purse is itself 125, and KKR are a franchise that don't actually, outside of, I guess, the last 2 auctions where probably they have spent 20 plus crores on getting 2 players. They usually like to kind of keep their balance sheet pretty strong, but at the same time not spend too much money on a single player. I don't think Venki Mysore has ever believed in that from whatever auctions we have followed. But you look at it, their core, more than the core, retaining Rahane, they have signaled that, look, we still have faith in this. Yes, because we might from the outside look at Rahane as not the best batter or something, but when they look at the numbers, he comes out as their best batter in the last season with a strike rate of 160. So they look at him also as a leader. What we look at analysts is, I know I can see the young guys here shaking their heads, but the franchises think differently completely. They think differently because they want experience on the bench, and they see Rahane is not at all being disruptor at all for their batting order. Then the other guys they have offloaded, most of them were like either, I think, the overseas bench. They didn't get the kind of returns they wanted. You can see that they completely remove all the overseas bench. So they clearly are going for something fresh. How many players do KKR have now currently?
They have
9
12
players.
12,
Yeah.
15, 12, right? They have 12.
Yeah.
And usually they go
13
for
slots.
about 18 to 20. So imagine they will go for only about eight people. They won't even need to do like 25. They don't need to fill up they just want to go for those 8 odd people. And so I think that it doesn't, from the outside, it might seem that they've emptied everyone, but it's actually Dre Russ that is the most important one that has been shocking. That's it for me.
All right. That's clearly the biggest story of retention of deadline day. Andre Russell released by KKR. And we think of Perhaps the second most notable release, at least the one that we found out much later, has broken earlier today on our platform, Matisha Pathirana. There was a bit of to and fro there. There were some doubts. Raunak, you want to come in?
Well, first, I want if Nagraj has anything on what led to the finality of the decision, and then I can add to that.
Go
On on Pathirana,
Pathirana.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Pathirana, I think the thing was CSK deliberated hard on whether he's going to be a fit bowler come IPL, whether he can play 14 seasons, his effectiveness with the change in tweak in action, which has been done by, in a way, by SLC. They were not happy with. They've been working. They've said it openly last time. Stephen Fleming and Eric Simmons, the bowling coach in 2025 IPL, they came out in the open and they said that they were kind of bothered and they were wanting to tweak. But doing that tweak, the player was getting more and more, not just like, I mean, there are different kind of injuries and niggles that have come. His shoulder apparently is also, there is a sort of, his bowling shoulder, I mean, because of the tweak in action and not having much workload, he's kind of probably not the fittest at the moment. So they were like we're going with a player who, more than the money, we're going with a player who's supposed to be our top bowler. And if we are not confident of having him fit and not having him do the thing effectively, is it worth really kind of retaining him for 13 crores? We'll have the purse to think of buying him back, but even other franchises will think on the same lines. And I think CSK are sitting on some more inside information, which prompted them to take this, what would come across as a bold move, because he's no more the match winner. He's no more, remember this, even Sri Lanka are not playing him consistently. He didn't play in some of these matches in Asia Cup. So from the outside looks like a bold move, but from inside, I think they look at differently, CSK.
Okay, I'll try and answer those questions that Nagraj raised from the inside, just from the outside, and all those questions deserve another season. The sort of sum total of my answers to those questions. Is his action being modified a concern? Yes. Is his form for Sri Lanka a concern? Yes. Is it worth having our main bowler at that price point? Yes, it's all a concern, but you can all give it one more season and then see how the landscape will shift before the last season ahead of another big auction. There has to be more to this for CSK to have reached this decision. It's not like you're going to get a lot of high quality fast bowlers who play specialist middle to death overs, finishing roles in perhaps the hardest league in the world to do that role. Pathirana's had 2 great seasons and 1 poor season. You know, I'm not going to say he's going to not be the bowler he was again. He's far too young for that, and therefore it surprises me whether they would think that maybe they've done an estimation that his price generally might be down in the market. So maybe we'll send Pathirana and possibly get him back at 3 or 4 less, but we'll still have enough purse to challenge for Cam Green or Glenn Maxwell or whoever is on their wish list. They wanted that excess purse because they are by some distance now the second highest purse, right? So if it's all of that, like if it's a tactical release to return, fine, but we know how risky that usually is. I think somebody's going to pick up Pathirana for a serious amount of money. It'll be one of those teams again in the mid 15, 20 CR balance purses that only need the odd fast bowler to fill. And it's also perhaps an indication that Nathan Ellis might very well get the most amount of game time that he's ever had. We'll come to that aspect later. But I was very surprised. If it wasn't for Russell, that would have been my most shocking release. But I stand sort of with an asterisk that there might be more information that will come in the next few weeks about availability, about other things like that. So if that happens, fair enough. But it is a surprise.
Yeah. And the point that I just want to re-emphasize, and you raised the word that you use is risk. It's that risk factor that they didn't want to. They kind of deliberated till this morning and then decided. And this involves the 2 coaches who, I mean, are like, they don't take these kind of calls easily. So they thought of, it is a risk. Eventually they agreed it is a risk overall, that to carry with a bowler who is not fit completely all the time.
They're okay carrying on the keeper who's not fit completely all the time. But anyway, I'll leave that there.
He's uncapped.
How much? I just wonder how much. We often, I mean, we say it in jest at times that you perform well in a series against India in the lead up to an IPL auction, it can do wonders to your stocks at an IPL auction. I wonder how much of that may have informed, unless there are outside reasons, as Raunak, you said, which we might find out in the future. I wonder how much of that, with Ellis and the way he's bowled in the last few months, made CSK feel a little more secure of this move, given whatever doubts they may have had on Pathirana. Whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, I think Ellis to me would have started ahead of Pathirana even had they had both of them. I think Ellis is that good. But I also think that you do need backups. And since you've got Ellis for 2 crores, you could have held on to Pathirana. But maybe CSK have also got, they kind of know that KKR is coming in with this size of purse. And they want to get one big all-rounder to replace Jadeja. I think with the kind of purse they have now, they can either get Green, or if they don't get Green, I see them getting Russell. I see them getting one of those two. And then maybe they felt that we need that extra purse to ensure we get a big name all-rounder.
Yeah, we're doing this today, by the way, because we were talking too much over each other. So Matt has brought the politeness to the entire sort of system. Yeah, I think the one thing we can take now is that CSK have accepted that they may have a very different first choice overseas 4 next year, which has Noor Ahmed in it, which has Devil Brevis in it, and you're pretty sure it'll have Nathan Ellis in it, right? So if that 4th overseas is not going to be a second fast bowler and therefore a 3rd bowler, because you already have Noor and Ellis who are locks, then one way of looking at it is, 13 crore for a bench player at best, we could perhaps do better than that. So it's that admission almost that they will go in and try and get more of a batting all-rounder or a specialist number 6. I second Dustin. They may very well have Russell high up on their list, but I don't know. I think there might be a few more names which we'll discuss later, but that I think could be a case that CSK might have accepted there is going to be a different type of team that they'll field next year.
All right. More on CSK and what they could be looking at going towards the auction. I can see questions. We will take them a little shortly on this show. But speaking of big name releases on the final day, I want to go to Ravi Bishnoi now. Lucknow Super Giants, 11 crore. We've spent the last couple of months wondering which of the bowlers will be let go of by Lucknow. Nagraj?
I'll be repeating myself, so I'll just be very quick on Ravi Bishnoi. He is LSG kind of bought him in 22 as one of their pre-auction picks, since they were a new team, and they thought that this is a good guy at that point where we can develop him and become a lead spinner. 3 seasons later or 4 seasons later, they don't see that at all, any value, not winning even one single match. So they felt that at 11 crores, and they retained him last year also. They gave him that chance, the opportunity, and he got a lot of opportunities. But eventually the rise of Digvish Rathi, even if it's 1 season old, told the franchise that maybe we can probably look at Rathi as our lead spinner and then get someone younger. And Shabaz Ahmed is also there. He can kind of double up as a part-time spinner. So for the balance of the team doesn't get lost. Yes, a spinner is lost, but they didn't feel that releasing Bishnoi. It's not the price as such, but just the effectiveness of the player. They just thought that we need to release him now.
All right. Anyone with any more thoughts on Bishnoi, and if you were surprised by the release? Dustin?
No, I actually was moving on from Bishnoi. I think that's one we saw coming.
I'll just give you what I've gathered from the Lucknow camp. Off the record is not off the record, because I'm saying it now. Yeah, I think there's just generally an impression that he's not evolved into the bowler they thought he'd evolve to from the last few years, and therefore the decision. But I see Bishnoi being one of the highest paid players at this auction.
All right. Bishnoi's release takes me to Rajasthan with the double spin release. We were wondering if it will be one of the 2 Sri Lankans who they let go of. Matt Roller, as it turns out, both Hasaranga and Thikshana released.
Yeah, I think the way that Rajasthan's sort of mid-season replacements went, and remember they had a couple of injuries just before the suspension last year, so they've been able to retain guys like Pretorius and Berger, meant that they actually were relatively tight on overseas spots. And it just didn't work as a strategy last year, did it? I think they obviously sort of set up as a batting heavy team in terms of where they invested the resources. But the bowling attack was, just so light as a result that they ended up losing a lot of games they could have won. They didn't close out games to the death, and I think they're going to have to invest heavily in a bowler at this auction. I actually already think that Rajasthan looks like a potential destination for Bishnoi. I could see them going down that route as him and Jadeja as their two main spinners, and then investing in an overseas fast bowler. But yeah, I wasn't hugely surprised that they got rid of them, particularly Tikshana. I think Hasaranga, I still think he's got a role to play somewhere in IPL, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked up in this auction, just based on, thinking back to that great year he had at RCB and his early days in this league. But yeah, clearly decided that not worth the investment and time to move on.
All right. That is Hasaranga Tikshana, both released by Rajasthan. I'm looking at the major releases elsewhere. RCB, we thought Liam Livingstone was the only tricky call for them to take. As it turns out, Livingstone is released. Nagraj, any information?
Matt might have more inside info, if at all, but clearly Livingston probably just Romario Shepard turning out to be what a good investment has kind of hurt Livy's in a way that they might have felt that probably we need another skill set player in this to add to the balance, or maybe as a backup to somebody else. And Livy at the moment, they won't get hurt by releasing Livy for that matter. And so, yeah, I mean, as such, yeah. So that's the only thing I can add right now.
The other thing I'd add to that is just potentially the need to invest in some backup overseas fast bowling. If you think they did get a lot of games out of Josh Hazlewood last year, but history would suggest with his injury record that there might be a season at some point where, and we've seen the news today that he's out of the first Ashes test in Perth. He's only getting older. You might want some quality overseas backup, someone with a bit of experience, and that's not going to come cheap at an auction. So I think it made sense to free up some funds that way.
But on
All
that
right.
point,
Dustin.
Matt, that's why I'm even more than Livingston. I'm surprised they released Ngidi, because they released an overseas fast bowler who was just 1 crore in their team. I know he was just a squad player last year. He had a decent game against CSK. With all his variations, he's a pretty useful bowler to have at just 1 crore. In fact, both him and Gerald Coetzee, I know they're not big money releases, but that's exactly why they both surprised me, because you don't tend to get overseas fast bowlers at base price or just over base price. But both these teams have decided to release them, even if they were just going to be backups in the squad. Why not just keep them? Because I don't see who they're going to get at that price point who's going to be all that much better.
Yeah,
But that's
point,
what
perhaps.
Dustin, I think teams think like that. They it doesn't hurt their balance, honestly, because they're not the first 11 players most of the times. These guys play the one straight game. If someone's injured, only then. So they believe that there's no risk releasing them. Let's go to the auction. We'll find something similar, or not the same bowler, but someone similar. Like Coetzee, that way you talk about Coetzee, his impact. I mean, no, they won't release if the impact was really high. I mean, Shepard has shown that impact in that season. He's also played previously elsewhere. He never showed that. Suddenly last year he shows that, so they feel that this is a small ground. He can hit those sixes, etc. Double up with David, and that is a very, very damaging finishing tool for RCB. So I just don't know whether franchises anymore think that, okay, if we are losing out on an experienced overseas backup bowler just because he's cheap.
But it's important. I mean,
I-
both these players were used last season. Coetzee was used in 6 or 7 games, and you've also got to look at attributes and not just what they did in a season. Both Coetzee and Ngidi have the attributes to be successful in the IPL, I think, which is why I think it's pretty surprising to me they were both released.
Yeah, and I think in the Ngidi case, important to point out, sorry, Raunak, I think it's one of the points you brought up in our RCB chatter, that RCB will have the question, or they'd rather be hoping on Hazelwood's fitness. So perhaps for a team like RCB to have the overseas backup going into the tournament, and now they don't have that. Go on.
Yeah, and that's the funny one. I mean, they could always go and buy them back, but like Matt said, they weren't expensive unless the players have just expressed a desire to want to go. And why would you want to leave the winning title defense side? I mean, it's all those things as well. But unless there is more to it, then we can decide. For now, I'll just think of a couple of things. One, between now and the auction, hopefully there'll be some clarity on where they'll play and whether that would they just want the flexibility of what overseas slots are more important. Perhaps you don't need two fast bowling slots occupied by overseas players. Maybe you'll get something there. Maybe they wanted to see what the auction ends up looking like. They don't have a lot of slots to fill. It's not like they're severely depleted. If tomorrow Hazelwood is injured, you can always find yourself a replacement. There are all those things. So there are many ways of looking at it. But for a well-settled side, perhaps you just wanted to open things up. I think the more tricky one, and I'm just going to say this much about it and nothing more, because I think we should have some fun generally when it comes to the IPL. But Yash Dayal's situation is one that's not really been reported on as much because we're waiting for accurate and responsible reporting. But the charges against him are extremely serious, and the franchise would have had to make a decision, regardless of what the actual court proceedings are, the current situation is, on whether they retain him today or they wait for some kind of official communication. We know that the player himself has withdrawn from a number of competitions in the recent past, but I am a little surprised, I must confess, that he's still in on that retain list for a lot of reasons, and we'll get those later with time.
But I think I'm pretty sure RCB would have sought directive from clarity on this situation, on this particular player from the BCCI, and probably only getting the clearance, they would have made this decision to, even if probably tomorrow, 6 months down the line when the IPL starts, he may not even play if there is any sort of those legal proceedings that he's involved in. Yeah.
My point is, Nagraj, that this is something that I'm just saying from the franchise point of view, one that, is the defending champions that's had, regardless of what the history might be, whether they own a WPL team or not, none of that is relevant. But from the right thing to do, if I was there, I'd release this player and you just find someone else. It's that simple. If things get clear tomorrow, you can take a call then. But sometimes, as we've seen with
we should give them the benefit of doubt that they might have checked. There is no, absolutely the logic that you are putting across is correct. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that we should also give them the benefit that they might have sought this because they also know that they are facing a lot of stress after what have happened during the stampede in June. So they wouldn't have taken it lightly. So clearly that might have been the case. So
all of that is fine. If I was an RCB fan right now and I'd see that, I'd be disappointed at my franchise. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Just to compare it, for example, there are football clubs who immediately release players, even when there are just accusations, even when sometimes the players are acquitted in court, like Manchester United releasing Mason Greenwood, and they didn't want to have anything to do with him, despite him actually being cleared in court. So I guess that's what Raunak is alluding to, that maybe you just release the player regardless of what the actual court proceedings are.
All right. That is that on the players. We've discussed most of the notable releases we found out on deadline day. Before I move to the retained players who might have been in doubt ahead of deadline day, I'm just sifting through the comments. Lots of comments, viewers saying hi again to Matt, who they've clearly been missing on IPL coverage. So hello on behalf of all of them to you, Roller. And Tajinder asking, why didn't you guys tell the Nitish Rana trade before IPL released it? Tajinder, even Bradman didn't average 100. Grant us a few. I will leave it there.
Tell the person not for lack of trying, not for lack of trying. Yes, 100%.
Okay.
That was, and I can't take the name of the person who actually told me first because the person might not want it. But thanks to that person also who gave me the heads up that this might be happening.
Do you want to guess out loud, Raunak? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like a drinking game where every time Nagraj says the person, we all sort of go. Right? Anyway,
I have a stacked bottle of water.
I have a cup of tea, and I must say, Nitish Rana is the trade of the window. While that place was occupied to Sanju Samson, because I thought CSK benefited immensely with what they get with Samson, and they still do, no doubt. But I saw Rana going in. I was making a strong case for Rana to be retained in spite of all the left-handers that they had, because his numbers, and Matt and Dustin could back me up, they defy the challenge of being a left-hand in the middle. Plays off-spin well, reverse sweep well, plays spin superbly, was one of their best players, etc., etc. But if for whatever reasons they've decided that he doesn't fit in their team, I thought he would go to the auction and command a really good price. He's captain KKR in the past, so there are so many things that work for Nitish Rana. That he has been successfully traded at that price, for me, is the business of the auction. In a small auction, players like Nitish Rana tend to benefit exponentially. And if Delhi Capitals have secured this trade, full marks to Hemang Badani and Venugopal Rao and the rest of the Capitals management. That's the kind of player they were also missing. If I may add, he would give them great versatility in what they were sort of lacking, and I just think it's absolutely brilliant business.
Yeah, and it frees
All
up
right.
KL Rahul to bat at the top of the order, I think, because last year Rahul was doing that middle order role. Now you've got Rana, Samir Rizvi, Tristan Stubbs, Akshar Patel. That could be your numbers 3 to 6 in any order. And Rahul, I think, should open this season for Delhi.
Yeah, and I think that decision becomes even easier now, while it was all on expected lines. Among the Delhi players released are their starting opener from last season, Jake Fraser McGurk, and their more regular opener through the season, Faf du Plessis. So perhaps KL Rahul is going back up to the top of the order. But while we're on Delhi, among the players who we were wondering whether they will be retained or released, T. Natarajan. Nagraj, that call, eventually what led to it happening, given the doubts that were there in advance?
Simply put, the paucity of good Indian fast bowlers which will come into the auction. And this is where when we discuss SRH, we will have to talk that point, because they might have might be rethinking now, because I was just looking at the pool of players that might come, and Indian fast bowlers experience, no one stands out. So Akashdeep and probably is the only other guy I can think of who might come. But the skill set that I'm going to SRH straight away, but we'll come to that. But yeah, I think that was the thing that stopped DC, I believe, from taking that step of releasing him, not for the price, but and also the fitness, etc. Whether he will play 14 matches again. They went through those questions, but when they realized that I'm not going to get a left-arm fast bowler in the auction, why don't I have? And especially if Mitch Stark, something happens to him or something, I still have a capable guy who has a bowled in high pressure situations, and I just keep him fit and I work with him. And I believe I've been told by somebody that Nattu was spotted with Munaf Patel, the former India fast bowler, who has been since last year the DC bowling coach. They were training in Surat, so clearly they are working with Nattu. So that's where they decided, okay, let's not take the risk now of releasing him.
And the one other fast bowler who, for a huge part of this retention cycle, was someone who no one was sure whether he'd be retained, Mayank Yadav. Eventually, does it come as a surprise to anyone that he has been retained by Lucknow?
A little bit, just because of the price point, but then again, I think that the thing that we obviously have to keep in mind with that LSG squad is it's all about fitness for the fast bowlers, because last year they were decimated and their attack was very poor as a result. But if you look at the names on paper and you consider the breakthrough of Digvesh, it does look pretty strong, particularly, if all of these players play to their potential. I'm talking Shami, Mayank Yadav, Avesh Khan. Who else have they kept? Even someone like a Mohsin Khan potentially.
Mohsin,
yeah. That's an extremely strong set of domestic fast bowlers. So I think I think there's definitely it's going to be a big challenge for that coaching staff, basically, to make sure that they can try and maximize the output from those guys, because those players at their best, all operating together, could be one of the most exciting attacks in the league, or you could have a situation like we saw last year.
And one thing to add is that both Zahir Khan, who was the team director last year, and Tom Moody plus etc. this time, and Bharat Arun importantly, they believe that this is a bowler that we can work with. This is a bowler who can easily win matches for us. We just need to look after him, and we are willing to give him that time. So despite his back surgeries, the risk was for me the back surgery, because it's on both sides. I heard it's not just on one side, it's on both sides of the lower back that he's had. So which is a very risky thing. And despite that, the medical staff have a confidence that whatever Mayank has been doing since then, and they have the confidence that he can start bowling. So as Raunak was saying about some other player, maybe Pathirana, he was saying that I would give one more season. They would have thought about in this case, they would have thought I think we should give him one more season.
Yeah, just to carry on from there, exactly the logic I used for Pathirana. CSK have rejected it because they probably have some information, but Lucknow have accepted it, that it's worth seeing what this guy becomes in another year, and if it really becomes, like, okay, unfortunately his injuries are overpowering everything else, then that's a call you make ahead of the big auction. They might just need time. Firstly, let's just say this is for me an admission that Mayank Yadav is at least on track to play the next IPL. If he was not on track to play the next IPL, then he's going into the auction straight away. But if whatever the nature of his recovery, that LSG are confident he will play a part at this upcoming IPL. They might need time and cover, and that is what Mohammad Shami gives. So I think that's how the business sort of is looked at from LSG's point of view. Whether or not they would have benefited from what would be a balance purse of, as I quickly look at it, what is their balance purse?
22.9. 22.9 is
22.9
LSG's.
would have become 33.9. But and what are the holes that you really need to fill in that team? I guess you're happy to refigure your bowling balance with Bishnoi's exit, with Rathi, as well as maybe an M. Siddharth who'll play a bigger role. I think the bigger one right now is that they can't have 4 outright batters, right? So they will need some overseas bowling, and I think that's what they'd like to keep that balance purse for. So whether you could have gone in with 30 instead of 20 and picked out some of the better overseas bowlers potentially, that's the only call I think that Lucknow had to make. But I can understand why they've retained Mayank Yadav.
And one more name quickly I'll add to the same list of fast bowlers who are highly skilled and rare to find, but are probably on the injury scale somewhere in the 6 to 7 bracket. Umran Malik, who didn't play last time, who was released by KKR, has been retained by KKR because which to me, in my original list, I thought he's going to be released by KKR, but I think there has been a second thoughts from, I'm not sure whoever it is, but they decided that we need to kind of we need to have this guy on the bench.
All right. I think we're more or less ready to move on to team-wise, how they stack up section. But before that, just to close the lid on what this window has been, and by far the busiest trade window we have seen. Before this, we have usually sat and just wondered in our closed rooms about, it would be so much fun if teams traded more. There's so much more to offer. Matt, implications of which way the IPL may be going?
Yeah, I think it shows the evolution of the league. I think it shows the fact that it's coming to maturity after however many years it's been now, into its late teenage years. I think it also shows that people involved like certainty. They like knowing what's going to happen. Particularly, you look at some of the sides that were successful last year. I'm thinking RCB and Punjab, obviously. MI are another very clear example with such a small purse going into the auction. GT as well. You can pretty much have a good guess at what their starting 11 is going to be already heading into a mini auction. And I think that the idea there is basically, they don't like the uncertainty of an auction table. And who knows what implications that might have for the future. I hope that we don't see the end of auction drama, and I think we'll still get plenty this time around. But, obviously a lot of these teams are now involved in other leagues overseas, which generally have a more sort of direct model in terms of signings. You can make offers to players straight away rather than having to wait for the uncertainty of a recruitment situation playing out live over the course of an afternoon. It will be interesting to see whether this is something that continues to become even more noticeable in future years.
On Matt's point, I can name 3 players: Nitish Rana, Mohammad Shami, and Shardul Thakur, who I think if they had gone into the auction would have fetched probably significantly more than what they've been traded for. But as Matt says, all those players have taken the decision that they would rather know where they're going than be in the auction.
Just on big picture, I think the first thing that strikes me with how busy this trade window has been is that the auction is even more of an unknown element post the 10 teams and post the impact player. A lot of historic IPL logic and data seems to have become a little obsolete, perhaps. And the teams that have gone with, there will be a team that will go into this auction with 2.75 CR like MI, and barely I think 7 or 9, 10, and there are teams that are going with 60 and 40. So Gujarat Titans have retained pretty much their entire squad. So it tells you the teams that actually got the big auction right. That's one, and the teams that didn't. And the second thing I'll say is I think it's a great learning for all the IPL teams to not be stuck on emotion when it comes to big auctions. I think a lot of big price retentions and acquisitions at last year's auction were highly emotion based, and they've all been, steps have been taken. They backtracked on those. So that's for me the lesson, and let's see how that plays out. But that was just the big picture point I wanted to make.
All right. Nagraj, anything to add?
Well, every team wants to win the IPL. It's a cliche, and some teams want it more than the others. As to take forward the emotional part, when we were discussing the Jadeja and Samson trade, Samson plus current trade, we all spoke about how the loyalty factor, etc., stopped franchises at one point to look forward, to kind of think about untying certain bonds that they had developed over the years. The Russells is the same thing. If we still wait to confirm whether it is the player who asked this, otherwise, or if the franchise took a strategic call, this only makes the league much and more open and brings, like Matt said, about the trading exercise into picture, where teams are more willing to take certain risks and not like just sit on it and think that, oh, this player will become my match winner, even if he is I've bought him at a big auction, or he's got a rare skill set. Being more open-minded, I think that is one thing that we all agree, I guess.
Yeah, Matt spoke of evolution. This is the year the IPL turned 18. Maybe it is turning a page as far as this part of the IPL goes. All right, let's tuck into the teams. And I think it only makes sense that we start our where they stand with the team that will make the most noise at the auction, Kolkata Knight Riders, who will arrive at the IPL 2026 mega mini auction. Their figure made me think mega, with 64.3 crore. Who wants to start us off? Where they stand, what are the holes, where do they go? Matt?
The whole team as a whole, really. There's more holes than a Swiss cheese. It's there's you look through it. They've only just got enough players to cover the 11 as it stands. So I think they're starting from a real blank slate near enough. I'll be interested to see what they go for in terms of how they source strong enough domestic players to fill some spots in some of in the middle order in particular. Whether they consider the option of buying back Venki Iyer. I know it's something that KKR haven't traditionally done. But you do think, given the sort of strange circumstances of that buy and the fact that there was such an obvious overpay at the auction, would they consider going for him for 12, 13, 14 crore rather than the 23 or so last time? But yeah, and I think the other big questions there are for them are wicket keeper. There was some thought maybe they could retain De Kock, given how well he's done in international cricket since his comeback for South Africa. Some names that they could go for as well. I was interested to see Inglis got released by Punjab. I was slightly surprised by that. Johnny Bairstow is going to be in the auction, and potentially even someone like Jordan Cox, who was player of the tournament in the 100 over here last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with a deal in the IPL this year.
Yeah, just on Josh Inglis, because that did look like one of the smaller notable releases. There seems to be word that he might not be around for IPL 2026. I can see in our comments.
Yeah.
So
basically, I gathered that when Russ was breaking, Inglis arrived, the news arrived. So obviously, Dre Russ has to be broken first. So looks like availability is the key point. Josh got in touch with them at the last minute, and that's what it was literally, I think, about half an hour before the window closed. Josh got in touch with Punjab Kings and told them that probably his availability for next season might not be fully. He might not be fully available, and that's why they retained, I think, Bishnoi. So that's one thing. But going back to KKR, I think yes, somewhere a wicketkeeper batter is sitting very happily, thinking that someone pick me up. Yeah, Raunak, go on. I know you want to.
No, quickly on Inglis. I believe it's a big year for him personally. He might be getting married around the time of the IPL, and he would need some time off, and it's right at the back of a T20 World Cup as well. So there was that. That's exactly the thing that he's communicated. So it's not like if he gets released and goes to the auction, they're going to be insane bids for him left, right, and center. I think the franchises will be aware of this. Or if they're not, they know now. But anyway, there is that. As far as KKR go, keeper, certainly. Opening bat, Cameron Green's number one destination, given the purse, and given that I don't think any of us disagree that he is going to be the most sought after player at the auction. And I would still like to believe that they're in the market for a captain. While Rahane could be a part of the sort of overall composition of the squad, but I really hope they are still looking for an ideal captain choice.
I'm interested as well in terms of the idea of Cameron Green going there. Just the fact of them having brought in Shane Watson as an assistant coach, I feel like that's a very natural relationship. Two guys who have been Australian all-rounders. I know Watson thinks very highly. He's spoken very highly in the past of Cam Green, and I think they're sort of similar, almost golden boys for Australian cricket. In that,
not more than Langer and
all-rounder is. Yeah. Well, player coach, Nagraj, player coach.
I'll let Dustin go.
I put my hands up 7 minutes ago, Raunak, and you just ignored it.
That is correct. You can go, Dustin. I was counting.
I said on English, to be honest, I'm still surprised he's released. I think he's a good enough player where Punjab could have kept him on the rolls for a year because he would have been there the year after that. And at 2-point-something crore, I mean, he's that good. I think if he comes back in the auction in 2027, he could get 10 plus easily. On KKR, I've kind of tried to put down an 11. We've got Rahane and Narayan opening possibly. Raghuvanshi 3. Then they'll need to find a number 4, maybe Cam Green, Rinku Singh. Then I think they probably need another player in the middle order. And then there's Ramandeep, Harshit Rana, Anukul Roy, Vaibhav Arora, Varun Chakravarti. It still seems like they're also missing an overseas fast bowler, but I don't know whether that will be like something they'll spend a lot of money on. Could they be in the market for a Pathirana, or will they look for one of the more budget buys in terms of an overseas quick?
All right, Raunak, now.
Now that's the problem because I forgot my point that I was going to make at the time. But
because mine was so excellent.
It was such a great point. I know, right? Matt said something, and I was going to say something which was actually really well connected to that. What was it that Matt last said? Matt, you remember what you last said?
The coach and player relationship. Yeah.
Coach-player relationship. Oh, sorry.
It's the coach and player relationship. Yeah.
I wonder what that tells us about Dwayne Bravo's relationship with Andre Russell in that case. But anyway.
Very important point, Raunak. Very.
Yeah. Anyway, just on that, like now you can see why Russell still leaves a hole even if they get Cameron Green. Russell, the bowler, is miles ahead of Cameron Green, the bowler, with due respect to Cam Green, as far as tried and tested in the IPL goes. So I remain very, very surprised by that. And there is still going to be a lot of shopping to do. They have the money, but I hope they don't get carried away with Venki Iyer's buying back. There is a certain price point that they need to establish for it because they've got bigger holes to fill than Venki Iyer, in my opinion.
I have a question for Nagraj, which is that do you have any information on whether KKR looked for a trade deal for somebody like a Nitish Rana? It would have made so much sense for them getting in someone at a much lower price point to take that Venki Iyer role. Do you have any info on that or not really?
So while KKR were in the market for one specific skill set, which is a keeper batter, and we know that one was KL, they did kind of try for Ellis, I think, also. So you can see that where they're going. No, I mean, they were thinking of certain, from the names I know, but Rana was not part of that. They had released Rana, they moved on. And with Rana, while Raunak had a point to make, with Rana, I know what happened in the sense, like, I think RR said that he would be RR were, I think, retaining him, but he would not be their first 11 player, from what my understanding is. So Rana was more keen than to take that call of I want to go somewhere where I can at least be part of the 11 or potential 11. So the offer, I think, was made yesterday that, okay, fine, let's look at this trade. And I think it is RR that prompted that trade for Ferreira than the other way around. So that's how it happened. It was not like DC looking for Rana, but who knows? I mean, because if you remember that Rana also did not return post the break that IPL had in May. The franchise asked him not to come back, apparently. So there could be, we don't know what exactly is the reason. So, but he did not join the squad. I remember that. So clearly, yes. So I don't know whether actually an offer went, but I never heard it myself from KKR.
All right. All right, we'll leave it there for KKR. Lots of other teams to cover. Chennai Super Kings, who will arrive at that auction with the second biggest purse, 43.4 crore. They, of course, also arrive now with Sanju Samson, a Super King, having been traded in from Rajasthan. Lots of big releases. But Matt, start us off. CSK.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see exactly how the top three sort of roles go. And there's a few players in CSK's team where their roles could be slightly different depending on how Fleming and co see it. So you could have Samson, I assume, will probably open with Gaikwad, and Matre maybe comes in at 3. But it depends again whether they think he's ready to play a full season as a starter. Dubé is someone who's batted in a number of different roles, whether that's a spin hitter or maybe slightly seen more as a finisher. And it might be that some of this comes together slightly depending on who they actually can afford at the auction. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a decent dip at Russell as well as Cam Green. I think Dustin's already mentioned that as a prominent possibility, and I can definitely see how that could happen. There's also obviously been some chatter around Maxwell. I wouldn't be surprised if they went for Livingstone either. And yeah, I think there are clear gaps, but they do have a lot of money to go after people with. I think Khalil, Kambodge, Ellis, Noor is the sort of bare bones of a possible attack, and then you could stick an all-rounder or two in on top of that. But yeah, there's obviously a few different permutations.
Raunak?
Yeah, Samson Mhatre, I think, looks like the opening pair with Gaikwad at 3 in all likelihood. I just like to point out that this is going to be new CSK now, isn't it? For years, success built on the back of that one foreign opener who did his job, whether he came in the form of Mike Hussey or Faf du Plessis or Devin Conway, but now a strength that's built around an Indian batting lineup that might be together for a long time. So new era. And actually, honorable mention to Devin Conway. I think he doesn't get as much credit, but he played his part in CSK's success up until last season. I'm surprised that they let Conway and Rachin go. I thought Rachin might have stayed for the 4 crore price point, but clearly they're looking at different types of players now to fill. So I'm quite excited. I said this on the CSK chatter. They will go in with a heavy purse, which they have, and they will still get stronger. It's already a really good core. Pathirana is the big shock for me. And I can't see a overseas fast bowler screaming, or an Indian fast bowler for that matter, screaming to replace him. So big calls for Stephen Fleming to take on who that bowler is, whether it's the bowler like an Andrik Nokia, or any one of the other released fast bowlers. But we wait to find out. I'm quite excited with the prospect of Andre Russell at CSK, which might very well be a possibility given Cam Green might be KKR's preference.
Just a quick point to add. The most important skill set CSK will look out for is a spinner. They need a spinner for Jadeja's role, and they definitely. Now, there is not too many spinners going around. They only have currently in Noor that one lone spinner. They don't have anything otherwise who's an established one. So they will definitely go for a spinner. Whether it would be an uncapped spinner, we don't know, or whether it would be, I don't know. I mean, we don't need to say Bishnoi. Obviously, Bishnoi will be, everyone will look at him, but whether that fits Bishnoi's numbers at Chipok or no, great anyway. So I'm not sure if he'll fit into that role. The other guys, I mean, the batting order already has been discussed. I think the one other guy who I think CSK might look at is Venki Iyer. They will look, even if he's a left-hander, I think Venki Iyer fits into that kind of scheme of things that CSK are looking at, young and upcoming. So from what little inside knowledge I have, definitely Venki Iyer will be on that. And Maxi will be one other person that they will look at because he can do the job. Now, whether Maxi and Fleming will have to take that call of whether he can work with Glenn Maxwell, who has been at different franchises. He's no doubt still a match winner. But will Flem want Maxi, and what kind of a role again? Yeah. So, yeah, go on, Matt.
Fleming and Maxwell have a relationship that goes back a long way, and Maxwell has spoken quite a lot about how much of a good influence he was early in his career in sort of helping him to grow up. He was head coach at Melbourne Stars for a few years, going back quite a long way now. But yeah, Maxwell has spoken glowingly about Fleming in the past, and I suppose we're about to find out whether Fleming thinks the same of Maxwell.
Yeah, I'll just read out the possible CSK 11, and you guys can give me your reaction. So I think Sanju and Matre at the top, Gaikwad, Brevis, Dubey, Russell. I'm going to put in there. Dhoni, Ellis, Noor, Kamboj, Khalil. I think what they might. Why is Raunak shaking his head at that? You
No, I
don't see
think it went.
Kamboj
The
and
batting,
Khalil.
the batting got over very quickly while you were reading that.
No,
That's
you'll
why.
have an impact sub who'll come in, so that will give you batting till 8. But that's actually the problem is if you get
Have you
Maxwell.
put Noor?
Yeah, I put Noor in, and I said if you bring in Maxwell, the only issue is how do you fit your 4 overseas players, because you have Noor, Ellis, and Brevis who are locks as overseas players, and if you go after a Russell, then it'll be sort of a Russell / Maxwell scenario. You could still get Maxwell if he comes at a cheaper cost, but it would be then almost a Maxwell / Russell in your team, and you'd have to find. I think they need to somehow find an Indian spin bowling all rounder to replace Jadeja, because it's actually kind of an important role. I don't know
Well,
if
and that's where I've. Yeah, sorry. Finish. I'll talk about the.
no, I said I don't know if just a spinner will do for them. If you look at the balance of their side, they might need a spinner who can bat a bit, and most of those guys are retained. So they maybe in the
And-
trade window they can find someone after this retentions are done.
And a spinner who can bowl in the power play. This is where Maxi did well in the little few matches, 4 matches he played at Punjab. He did really well, and I was surprised actually that he let go. Punjab let go Maxwell, but probably it might. Why the reason? Oh, probably we won't be told ever. But he can do the job, and this is where I think Jadeja was struggling at Chipok, especially in power play. A few numbers I was just checking, he was very weak. He barely bowled also, so that was also hurting CSK. So this is where one place where Maxi can. They might look at someone like Maxi too.
All right. Okay. CSK, we're done there. I will move to team number 3 as far as purses go. And only for rotation, no other purpose. Raunak, you can take strike on Sunrisers and where you think they stand and where you think they'll go.
They stand on a pedestal of high power strength, and that's going to continue. They've kept the core together, which just shows that the importance of Pat Cummins, because I think he stitches everything else together. He keeps Travis Head happy over there, and he keeps Heinrich Klaassen, Abhishek, that Head and Abhishek Sharma Jodi is set to continue. As far as any real surprises go for the Sunrisers, I know Adam Zampa doesn't seem keen to want to come back to the IPL next year. So that's an area they'll have to fill. Zishan Ansari can't be their lone spinner. And Rahul Chahar, who was at 3.2 crore, has gone out. So I see them in the market for a spinner. Whether that could be an overseas or an Indian spinner, find out. Whether they would actually be keen on Bishnoi would be very interesting. Sunrisers Hyderabad, I think we might end up seeing that. Other than that, pretty set squad. In fact, they had a slightly unlucky pattern of play in the first part of the IPL last year. They finished better than they started, but that ultra aggressive approach just backfired more than it normally should have. Karthik Krishnaswamy did an excellent analysis piece of a lot of luck missing more than anything else. It was still a very good team. They need Heinrich Klaassen to fire. Otherwise, they're a good team. I like that they've kept most players intact and together. And I think we might see some uncapped Indian players play a big part. I think Smaran Ravichandran's a very interesting one. He's a left-hander. He's at 30 lakhs. He came in as a replacement. And I think they rate him very highly. And therefore, he's been retained along with Aniket Verma, who had such a good season. Harsh Dubey is the other one who came in as a replacement player, who's a left-arm spinner, and has got a very good red ball record playing Ranji Trophy. So I actually think they've got a lot of good bases covered. They can squeeze in some complementary overseas players just to add to Kamindu Mendes, who may not necessarily be a 14-match player. But I think Ishan Malinga also seems to be a pretty good cover on that side. I'm only interested at 25.50. That's a good purse. So whether they are interested for one big buy, like one biggie at the auction, and is that biggie going to be one of the? I think let that be taken forward by those putting their fingers up.
Yeah. So all of you were. So I'm a little confused. I think I saw Matt first. So Matt.
Well, I was just putting up a V for Venki. I wonder whether they're going to have a dip for Venki Iyer.
Okay.
Looking at the possibility of a middle.
Okay.
Go on. Let me just go the batting lineup potentially of Head, Abhishek, Kishan, Klaassen, Venki, and Nitish Kumar Reddy as a top 6 could be pretty phenomenal. And then you have an overseas spinner as your last overseas player. Could work.
I think
That's
Aniket Verma makes their first 11, so I don't see the need for Venki. The
yeah.
11 I have down is Head Abhishek, Kishan Klaasen, NKR, Aniket, then maybe Harsh Dubey, number 7, Cummins, Harshal Patel, Ehsan Malinga, and then I think where they will look to spend is the spinner. I don't
Yeah.
actually. I know you were going to say the Shami replacement, but I can actually see them replacing Shami with having an Ehsan Malinga, Cummins, and one of the Indian fast bowlers they already have, either Harshal or Onatkar, and then go big for an Indian spinner. That's one way they could go about it.
Yeah, two inferences I draw from everything you all have said. That to me, it appears like Ravi Bishnoi would perhaps be a player of big interest, not just because of the holes right now, but also because we've spoken a lot during the season of Sunrisers prioritizing bowlers who have a defensive bowling skill set, which is something Bishnoi has done quite often in his T20 career. And I also wonder, since you brought up the question of Venki Iyer, and this question, any of you can take it. I wonder, seeing how you've positioned Sunrisers and where they stand right now, Raunak, if this is a team which is more interested in getting 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 crore buys to fill all those roles with quality players as opposed to going all out for one big player.
No, because when you have most of your 11 set, you don't think like a spread of 4 or 5 crore for 5 players is as valuable as somebody who you could potentially use as an X factor player in a settled 11 or 12. The only question is, do Sunrisers see themselves as a settled 11 or 12? And they were pretty much this. Their best team featured. Their best team was a team without Mohammad Shami and without Rahul Chahar anyway last year. So I don't think they lose out in big ways in that way. I repeat, with Aniket Verma, which is something that I'd said at the last auction, they've scouted well, and if they've retained Smaran, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a big role to play. For me, the players they'll pick up are the released players who will have defensive skill sets, who will buy into their philosophy. So Lungi Ngidi, Reece Topley, players like that will make for good squad players. But I think they will be surprised by a couple of the players that have entered the auction. One of them being Russell and the other one being Bishnoi. And they will be surprised as to how much their balance still is. They can sit quietly and wait, see how KKR and CSK draw blood off each other. And then there might come a time at the auction where they may just realize, right, we might as well go for this one player that, nobody else is showing a lot of love to. So that could happen.
Last year they were using Abhinav Manohar and Kamindu Mendes quite a bit, and that's where Russell could come in. So he could be a player they could go for. Sorry, go ahead, Nagraj.
No, fine, totally fine. That's fine. So the one skill set Varun Aaron, the new bowling coach, will be scratching his head to find, and we have not spoken about, is a power play fast bowler. SRH don't have it. They definitely need that, and it would need to be an Indian. And this is where the point I was trying to make. They would have deliberated, no doubt about it, that whether releasing Shami now is wise or not. But the pool, I'm trying to look at the pool. Yash has given me an exercise quietly on the side. Give me a pool of fast bowlers. And honestly, the Indian fast bowling thing, I don't know about the rookies, but there is zero. It's nobody is out there. It's the overseas guys who are, I mean, they have cars. They don't.
I have
we
one
need to
name.
say that.
Shivam
Yeah,
Mavi is somebody who has been scoring a lot of runs of late and also.
Yeah, well,
been
he's
doing
trying
this
him
again.
hard to put himself as an all-rounder, but not a fast bowler anymore. So first,
If they need Shivam Mavi's batting in that team that I've just mentioned, then a lot has gone horribly wrong for Sunrisers.
yeah, I think
Right.
that's the thing. The Indian fast bowler and the spinner, which you guys have already mentioned, will be the
All
two
right.
key buys they want at this auction.
That assignment I handed over to you, Nagraj, was actually me passing it on from what has been a big theme in the comments. A lot of interest in trying to find out what could be the pool of fast bowlers. So I hope you've got some semblance of an
Right.
answer
So I
there.
have 0 Indian names. I'll go with some of the overseas names, and guys, please add to that. Probably Adam Milne, Shamar Joseph, Gus Atkinson, Jaden Seals, maybe, and some of the other released
What game are
guys
we
from
playing?
KKR.
Matisha Pathirana.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Raunak, this
and the
is fast
KKR
bowlers who
guys.
I'll
Yes.
throw some names in who haven't been part of a recent or weren't part of it last season. Matt Henry, I think, is a possible. Jason Berendorf as an experienced new ball option. Jacob Duffy from New Zealand has had a really
he's
good
there,
year in T20 internationals. Possibly Riley Meredith as well. He's had a good year and has stayed fit. And a slightly left field English shout for you is Josh Tongue, who was, I think, the leading wicket taker in the 100. Hasn't played white ball internationals for England, but as a slight wild card shout if he has a good Ashes or starts the Ashes well.
I think Josh Tongue would be a perfect replacement for Pathirana. He'd probably give you as many high impact balls and also bowl as many wides.
Gosh, that's poor, Dustin. That's so
Okay.
poor. I mean, sorry, just throwing one more. Mustafizur Rahman. I don't know if you mentioned him.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's a good.
And that's the thing that I'm sorry. I'll just say this disclaimer for our viewers. There are players that we just don't think of in the aftermath of the retention and release, and then when we get the auction list, we realize, oh, okay, he's there as well. So there are going to be a lot of those players that we've not brought up here. So just forgive us if we miss someone out, but there will be players who go like, oh yeah, this guy's also there. So that's going to happen a lot.
All right. We move to Lucknow Super Giants next, who will have 22.95 crore. They have had two players traded in, Mohammad Shami and Arjun Tendulkar. And among the notable releases, as you see on your screen, Bishnoi, Miller, Akashdeep, Shamar, Joseph. Matt, lowdown on Lucknow.
Yeah, I sort of imagine they'll go with the three overseas batters again in Marsh, Markram, and Puran. But then I think they've got to sign an overseas bowler, at least one, maybe two. I think the balance is an interesting question for Lucknow because of the fact that they don't have many bowlers who bat and don't have many batters who bowl. So whether or not, does that mean that someone like Shahbaz Ahmed gets game time because of the fact he can add a bit of, a little bit with the bat and a little bit with the ball. But also, maybe they'll see that as a possibility where they can target an all-rounder in the auction. I think they actually have, I would say, a surprisingly big purse given how many players they seem to have kept hold of. But I think those three notable releases, I suppose, in Akashdeep, David Miller and Ravi Bishnoi has freed up a lot of funds. So I think they probably do have the cash to go hard for an overseas all-rounder, whether that's, I don't think they'll have the money to get Cam Green unless they sacrifice pretty much everything else. But maybe they could go for a Russell, maybe on the slightly cheaper option or the spin bowling option. They could try for a Maxwell or a Livingstone or someone like that. But yeah, I think the balance is the key question.
I also think this is the team that may go for Venkatesh Iyer because they have Ayush Badoni and Abdul Samad there who did okay last season, but they may be looking at an upgrade there also just to have, although they have Puran and Pant at number 3 and 4, so they don't exactly need more lefties. But since they've released Miller, maybe Venkatesh Iyer, I wouldn't be surprised if they bid for Venkatesh Iyer.
They just need a lot of bowling, I think, from the overseas contingent point, because that 4 batters is not a good balance. And Tom Moody, we know him well enough now. He's allowed us the pleasure of knowing him over all these years on our analysis couch. And the ideal balance, when you've got Marsh, Markram and Puran locked in there, and Mitch Marsh can bowl, that's handy because that's not always been the case. But I think Willow Roque is a player who did well for them last year, and I don't see him on the retained list. So they might look for. I don't know if he could have been retained. So they might very well bring in players like that and try and get a battery of overseas fast bowlers to try and balance things out, because there will remain questions on Mayank, Mohsin and Shami. No matter how optimistic things look now or even in Jan or in March, that team has learned with a very bitter pill last year. They have to have contingencies. So they have to get a lot of bowling with that money. So I don't see them taking that 22 and getting more batting. They're going to expect Pant to do the business this year. They're going to expect their overseas players who form the core of their batting. The bigger holes to fill are backups for their bowling. They need to spend that money there.
Just to throw a couple of possible names out for overseas fast bowlers, I think Spencer Johnson could be one that they might go for. I know Moody's had him at Oval Invincibles in the 100 before. Berendorf, another name who fits into a very similar category, just as someone who's got a lot of experience. So I think those two will be ones to keep an eye on. Maybe even a Matt Henry, who had a bit of a time with Lucknow a couple of seasons ago, and I was pretty surprised he wasn't involved in the IPL at all last year. So I think that's the sort of caliber of fast bowler they'll be looking for, someone who they feel they can plug in and play as and when they need to.
All right. So lots of bowling, and if they can get bowlers who offer something with the bat, That will be great value for Lucknow. That's where they'll be looking at the auction. We move next to Delhi, who round off the 5 teams who do have 20 crore plus, 21.8, with what Raunak has called the best trade of this window. Nitish Rana added to the mix. Nagraj, where are you seeing Delhi?
I think they need to get one overseas batter, right? It's a no-brainer. They've released 2 of them, and JFM was someone they really thought that would turn out to be a complete consistent match winner, which it didn't turn out. Maybe they might buy him cheaper if he comes to the auction. If I don't know whether he'll come cheap now. Many other teams might be looking at him. So yeah, one overseas top order batter. I wonder one guy who they might think of and who's been scoring in domestic cricket and who has always more than potential. He's got everything is shown is Prithvi Shaw. Whether Delhi do need one top order batter, whether Indian or overseas, and as much as we might raise our eyebrows, and Raunak, as always, will make those amazing gestures, which are so poker faced. No, I mean, this is like you have to think about it. It's not my brain. No, it's like people are thinking that why not Prithvi Shaw? So do we think of? So yeah, I guess one top order batter for sure, and then maybe I think they've released Chamira, right? They have. So they've also released Mohit. So they might want one overseas fast bowler. I'm not sure who's the backup for Stark there, to be if there is a backup at all. So there may be one fast bowler, yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing is
and Harry Brook is not there, so they will look for, of course, that another batter there. So Harry Brook,
they'll be looking for the main thing is just, I think, an overseas impact batter. Matt, I wanted to ask Matt, of all the England players who are in the auction, Pesto, Banton, there's JM Cox as well. Who do you see being, the highest value player that, say, a team like DC could go for? Because I think they are most in need of one overseas batter.
Just quickly, I think Chamira was retained as a backup for Stark. I think he's there on the list at 75.
He's there, is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, on the England players, I don't think there's a standout name among them. I would expect that Livingstone, because of the fact he offers something with the ball and has had a couple of good IPLs before, will be popular. All-rounders tend to be pretty popular at these mini auctions. I think Bairstow even showed enough in those couple of games he played for MI at the back end last year, and he's obviously now focusing sort of mainly on T20 cricket. There's not going to be any availability issues because he's out of the England setup. I think he'll be someone of interest. I do think Jordan Cox is someone who will get some. I would be surprised if he was unsold at this auction. I was just looking through, actually, there's still, I think there's 31 overseas spots available at this auction. So there's going to be a lot of players picked. And Cox, for people who don't know him, he's played a handful of games of international cricket, but he was the top scorer in the 100 this year. He's going to the ILT20 actually at Dubai Capitals on a pretty big deal shortly, and is, I think, well established as one of the best fielders in this country anyway. So I think he'll be a good squad player somewhere, and wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Delhi. But yeah, I agree with what people have said there. I think, as Raunak has said, I can see Nitish playing a big role potentially at, he could be their number 3 for the full season. And I think, yeah, there's also, again, there'll be yet another team that's potentially in the market for one of these overseas seam bowling all-rounders if they can afford it.
Just a couple of questions here first before I say what I want to say. Is there a Capitals connection to Andre Russell in any other league somewhere? A CPL connection?
I mean, this is actually...
No, he's a Knight Rider.
Yeah, this is why it's groundbreaking.
That is the main thing. I mean, that's why it's like eyebrow.
Anyway,
that is the proper eyebrow-raising one.
Yeah, I'm just putting that up there because I think I saw something about Saurav Ganguly meeting him, but like that is Dada being Dada at times. You know what? I think I've said how highly I rate this team, and they need to do very little to improve. I don't rule out that they'll actually be another one. Like Sunrisers, they might just surprise us for one big buy. And that big buy could turn out to be somebody of the Russell sort of caliber. I wouldn't rule it out at all because they really don't need anyone else. Dustin's absolutely right, though. I think one big decision is KL Rahul going to be their opener, which I think he certainly should be. And who is the best kind of opening bat with KL Rahul? Are you happy with that being Abhishek Porel? Are you happy with that being Karun Nair? Or are you now looking for that one explosive Phil Salt equivalent of what he is to Virat Kohli and what he was at KKR as well? who is that player? Is it Bairstow? Is it, one of the players that we mentioned? Finn Allen's name, I think, pops up every now and then. So I think that one big overseas player is at the top of the order, and I think very interestingly they might just dangle things around for Andre Russell.
I like the idea of them going for mid shot as well, or match shot rather. I mean, as a dynamic opening batter who can also bowl, I think some very decent off spin. I think his off spin's underrated. Yeah, so I can see
That's
them
a good
going
shout.
for
By the
him
way, talking about Dre Russ in Delhi, he was a Delhi daredevil once before he became a Knight Rider. Remember
He
that?
was.
So
as
rebel,
was,
but
as was AB de Villiers, and as was
Everyone
Maxwell,
of some repute
David
at some
Warner,
point
boss.
in
David
IPL.
Warner.
Yes. All right. Okay, let's move to the other 5, and we'll start making it quicker because we're left with the teams who don't have a lot to do, at least most of them. RCB at 16.4. Who's starting us off? Matt?
Yeah, seam bowling backup, I think, is the one. Both domestic, we've mentioned Yash Dayal situation, and overseas as well. I think I think experience, someone like Matt Henry looks like an obvious fit to me as a Hazelwood backup. But yeah, not a huge amount to do. Interesting, they released Mayank Agarwal. I thought they could use a backup number 3.
They
for
couldn't
Padikkal,
fit in him, I think, Matt. He came in, I think, very late, didn't he? Didn't he
too
come
late
in
in the
very
piece.
late?
Yeah, I think he was just on the verge, wasn't he? I can't remember whether he was just before the deadline or just after the deadline. But regardless, that'll be I'm sure they'll have some a domestic batter in mind to potentially come as backup in case Padikkal doesn't have such a good year at number 3.
Just
I
to
can
put
actually
it out
see
there.
I think if that question was on Mayank Agarwal, whether he was in time, he was eligible to be retained because he had come in just before the league took a break. So anyway, Dustin, you can continue.
I can see RCB actually putting in a pretty big bid for Matisha Pathirana just because they've released Ngidi. I think maybe they're thinking, you know what, maybe we don't really need that much. We can use a lot of the 16 crore, go up to 12, 13 even for Pathirana, and then just use, the remaining 2 or 3 crore to fill in squad roles. I don't think they'll get Pathirana. I don't think that will be enough of a purse, but I can see them then just getting a bit of seam bowling backup, maybe a replacement for Livingstone, but at a lower price point, and maybe some more Indian backup just to, because you don't know whether Devdutt Padikkal and the likes will have the same kind of seasons they did last season. Yes, Raunak, tell us.
Oh, sorry. No. I just wanted to point out that one point I forgot to make with all the Livingstone stuff is that perhaps there is some love for Jacob Bethel at that franchise, and they've got the Livingstone replacement in the retention list already. So they may not want to replace him necessarily. I see Jacob Bethel's graph only going up, and maybe that's what Andy Flower and Mobo Bat see as well. And therefore, Bethel could be a really sort of big player for them next year. And let's just remind everyone, not that they need reminding, that the second highest bid for Venki Iyer at the big auction last year was RCB.
All right. Any other thoughts on RCB, or should I move on to Rajasthan Royals? I move on to Rajasthan Royals, 1605. Lots of acquisitions made in Jadeja and Sam Curran and Donovan Ferreira as well. Lots of releases too. Matt, what's their agenda?
Yeah, I think going to be a different strategy this year, clearly with the release of those 2 overseas spinners, Hasaranga and Tikshana. So I think there's a possibility they'll go with 2 overseas quicks, which would be Archer and someone else. They obviously have Nandre Berger in their squad, who I think is seen as a real high potential player. So he's someone that could come into the mix. They might also look to invest there at the auction. I would imagine that Dhruv Jurel might bat a little higher up this year. That would be my expectation. He's obviously been used in mainly as a finisher, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him come at 4. I see Curran as a likely starter, most likely as he's sort of become a batting all-rounder really. So I'd have him as probably number 5, and then I think Ferreira could push Hetmar quite hard actually for that finishing spot. So I think they'll be looking for an Indian spinner potentially and a bit of overseas fast bowling as well.
Just a question on Donovan Ferreira, who seems to be the talk of the town. Like, there are people going up to Delhi. How could you release Ferreira? I'm sorry, I don't watch as much cricket outside, but maybe Matt can tell me what's the sort of big expectation for Ferreira? And I'll add one more question to the same point. They have 7 overseas slots that are already occupied. So they've got room only for 1 overseas. And out of those 7 overseas spots, there's Ferreira, Mapaka, Pretorius, and Berger. These aren't necessarily your, sort of experienced IPL players. There's a lot of promise, but they only have 1, like I said, overseas slot left. So I'm just a little bit, I'm curious. That's all.
Yeah, on Ferreira, he's had a good couple of years with Oval Invincibles in the 100. They've obviously won the last, I think, 3 editions, and he strikes at over 200 for them. He's done well in smaller leagues as well. Major League Cricket, he's been a success. He's obviously not really had much of an opportunity in the IPL. I think he only played once or maybe twice for DC last year. But yeah, it's an interesting trade for sure, because as you say, Raunak, in terms of the Nitish situation, I think that he could be a real steal. I definitely saw him as a steal at the auction last year, but it didn't quite work out maybe as they would have hoped. And then, yeah, Ferreira moving away. I think, you could have seen that trade taking place at a much higher price point, and it would have been interesting to see how that would have evolved. But yeah, I think Ferreira for 1 crore is potentially a very good buy. And I would imagine his price, again, as we've said for various other players, might well have been higher if he'd gone to the mini.
And the thing is, Ferreira becomes the backup for Hetty as a power hitter in that sense, and also like brings in that right-handed element towards RR's lower order, because there's so many stacked up with so many left-hand batters. You have Sam Curran there, etc. So the one skill set I think RR have to find out is a good spinner. Right now,
So I
don't see
think
one
Bishnoi
spinner
will
there.
be a target, yeah. So
Yeah,
Bishnoi will be
but
the
they
target.
definitely need a spinner, and who it is, whether, I mean, if they get an overseas, then they kind of, who's playing, who's the regular overseas guys? They're going to be Sam Curran will play. You'll have
Jadeja is one.
Jadeja is one guy, yeah, but he's not going to be
I don't think there's space for an overseas spinner personally, as I see it. I think
Yeah,
it's going to be
it
Curran,
has to be an
Hetmeyer,
Indian
and
spinner.
Archer as 3 overseas, and then an overseas fast bowler is the last one.
This is where a
Karan
Rahul Chahar
Sharma.
might find. Karan Sharma, Rahul
Yeah, who
Chahar,
knows?
perhaps.
Yeah.
Surprises at
Chahar.
least. Just one more thing, which I think a couple of viewers might be interested in, is the Jadeja trade going from 18 crore to 14 crore. So that's a reduced negotiation that took place, and Nagraj was kind enough to help me go through a very detailed legal document on rules and regulations on trades. And
You're
can
the lawyer,
have
you're
these.
LLB boss.
Thank you, Nagraj. Yeah, I can just inform that it's a very rare thing because it requires player consent, and players rarely consent to be paid less. But as long as the IPL and the BCCI have certain protocols in place to ensure that certain standards are met and there's nothing inconsistent about these sorts of deals. So after that, this has been approved and accepted. So this is a rare thing because players don't usually accept being officially traded for a lesser price. But that's why Jadeja has gone 18 to 14. It is more common to go higher, and that's how Donovan Ferreira has got a small hike from 75 lakh, I think it was, to 1 crore, for whatever it was. But these negotiations can happen independently, and they're well within the IPL trading rules.
So the rules state simply that the negotiated amount will be the contracted amount, and that's what IPL needs to know, and that will be deducted from the purse, simply put. So the negotiated amount here was 14 crores between RR and Jadeja, and that is what will be cut, even if CSK paid him 18 crores.
And sorry, just to lastly follow up, why would a player accept a pay cut? Well, who knows? Maybe he enjoys the likelihood of being captain of the franchise, and that is one more reason why he decided to leave, accept the trade from a side like CSK. Just putting it up.
And I'm just going to add what is relatively fresher information. I saw some comments and I've gone and looked it up. There's been an account posted. There's been a post on RR's account with the CEO Manoj Badale, where he said that Jaddu reached out to me about 4 weeks ago and was excited about the prospect of coming home. So this is where it began for Jadeja, all the way back in 2008 when he was anointed rock star by no less than Shane Warne. Back he is at Rajasthan Royals. Right, 3 teams to go, and they've looked, the teams, all 3 of them made the playoffs, all 3 of them look quite settled, so we can run through these quickly. Matt, you want to get us started on Gujarat Titans?
they look really strong to me. I was slightly surprised they let Rutherford go at the price they did, but his form has taken a real nosedive in international cricket of late. I see the obvious top three. I see Washington Sundar playing a big role for them at number 4. I've sort of penciled in Glenn Phillips as a number 5. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a dip for someone else, maybe a Maxwell or a Livingstone in the auction. Shahrukh Khan, Tawatia, and then Rashid Khan, Rabada, Sai Kishore, Siraj Prasid looks very, very strong to me. I think they'll have a backup for Rabada on the shopping list, and then the only other question is whether Glenn Phillips starts. But as a 12, obviously one of those is going to be an impact sub. That looks pretty good to me.
Dustin, any area GT will look at in the auction?
No, just the ones
Potential
Matt
targets?
mentioned. I think Maxwell would be a great fit for them, actually. Somebody who can bowl a bit of off spin, but also just be a middle order hitter. They don't even have to play him every game, but he would be a good option just to fill it. I think that them letting go of Rutherford kind of makes sense to me. Looking at the number of overseas batters who are going to be in the auction, I think they might be able to get somebody who's more informed.
I go back to what Dustin said earlier quickly, that Washington Sundar might be doing that role. That's all indications are that they're happy to let go of Rutherford. Just one thing I will say though is Sudarshanan has told me something about Dre Russ featuring for
Russell, yes.
Capitals franchise, but Nagraj seems to be saying something else. Anyway, we'll leave it out for later.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's move to Punjab Kings, who will arrive at an auction, at a mini auction with one of the smallest purses. That is how good 2025 was for Punjab Kings. They have truly turned the corner. They look very settled. Nagraj, are they even coming for this auction?
No, let Matt speak because I've spoken so much of Punjab. I think there's not much.
Sorry. Now I've understood the messages I was making. I'm sorry if this came across a bit shabby because Nagraj has confused me on our WhatsApp group. But yeah, Andre Russell will be playing for the Pretoria Capitals at the SA20. So there is a Capitals connection there, and that was the point I was asking. And of course, anyway, Ganguly is known to be associated with the Capitals. Just putting it there.
I will offer my apology to the producers who will be clipping these team-wise chats. Matt Roller picking up for Punjab.
Well, Punjab obviously had a great season last year. I think they've retained the most players out of anyone, 21, so not many spots left. They've also, I think, only got one overseas spot left. So the big question is who they're going to use that on and how they see the balance. That they have a lot of seam bowlers and seam bowling all-rounders among those overseas as well, between Omazai, Ferguson, Janssen, Stoinis, Owen and Bartlett. That's 6 out of 6 overseas players who can bowl seam up. So no shortage on that front. The only possible holes they might look to plug, I wonder whether they'll want another finger spinning option, potentially to compete with Harpreet Brar. But I don't think there's any huge gaps in it. I think it's just going to be a case of going hard at an overseas option who they identify as the missing piece in the puzzle.
Yeah, top order batter, spinner, or a overseas fast bowler, I've been told. And yeah, I mean, a keeper batter they definitely need because Inglis goes out.
But they've got Prabh Simran who can keep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's one, but they would want another, right? So
and Vishnu Vinod is retained. So
Vishnu Vinod has been retained, but they might be looking on the lookout for an overseas batter keeper too. Among the overseas thing they want.
I think Inglis going out means Shreyas Iyer and Vadera just move up the order. We might see a bit more of Mitch Owen this season. I'm actually I know that a lot of people were like saying, release Maxwell, of course, release him. I'm actually kind of surprised they released him. I thought that with the ball, he was doing a decent job for them. And at that price point, I would have just kept him. I mean, it's not like you're going to get, even if you get somebody like a Livingstone, it will probably be at a similar price point, if not more.
Raunak, anything on Punjab?
Damn good team, they'll be fine. Whatever happens at the auction.
All right, we move now to Mumbai Indians. 2.75 crore is what they'll come into the auction with. Are they going to come to the auction, or are they already done and ready?
Do they need to like go into the auction? That's like they've done the business. Excellent trades. Rutherford, very sharp. Markande, they would love that at base price at 30 lakhs. Shardul, handy squad player, 2.75, which is, I think, by some distance, the lowest balance at the auction. So, But it's when it's MI. Have they exhausted their squad quota? What is the squad quota? 25, right?
Yeah.
That's right. 25.
So they're 20 right now, and this is where that 2.75. Be very curious to see how many uncapped Indian players they get. Someone like Vignesh Puthur being released, I'll just say was a surprise to me. So to Karan Sharma, but these could be injury related, and clearly they don't. So we might see another batch of scouting unveiled, where 5-6 Indian uncapped players who we've never heard of before all get picked up, and maybe other franchises look around and try and outbid them for it. So that's I think what MI will be in at this year's auction for. But otherwise, damn good team, made it to the top 4 and continue to improve.
My money is on them. My money is on them raising the paddle for Cam Green just to troll the other team. Just go up to 2.5 and then stop.
MI won't do that.
That would be fun.
But yeah, I mean, who's the next scouting talent we wait to watch? So it'll be interesting.
Matt, as far as areas, I mean, I know there's only so much they'll be able to do, but as far as areas go, I guess it's just the Indian spin back up.
Yeah, they obviously have one overseas spot left as well, so be interested to see what role that is. Potentially Seema back up for Bolt. They've obviously got rid of Topley, so maybe they want someone a bit more like for like rather than Corbin Bosch, who's more of a seam bowling all rounder and changes the balance. But as people have said, it will be interesting to see whether they go, one overseas quick at 2 crore and then one other player and cap it at 22, or whether they look to fill out the squad with some scouting picks. I was pretty surprised to see Vignesh Puthur released. I mean, he obviously had such a great start to last season, and then I think had some injury issues and maybe was worked out.
No, I think it's injury related. That's why.
Yeah,
and I think it's a lot of long-term injury concerns around him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether anyone else takes a punt on his fitness in the auction. And the other interesting thing with the auction timing is that we get a lot of the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy happens before the auction this year. I think it was
but 2 Ashes. 2 Ashes, boss. 2 Ashes.
Yeah.
2 Ashes test. That's more important. The most expensive buy is there.
Yeah, Bo Webster, we haven't even given a mention to, and he's suddenly going to be getting himself 10 crore. Jake Weatherall.
I read somewhere Stephen Smith is entering the auction. Is that true?
Yeah, correct. He said it on KP's new YouTube channel. So, but I think he's entered the last few as well, and it's not necessarily gone his way. So, let's keep our eyes peeled.
All right. While we are on Ashes players, there were some questions. I think Ujjwal threw up a question which I'm throwing straight at you, Matt. Any chances of Ben Stokes at this auction?
I don't think he's allowed to, as per the new rules.
He's not allowed.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Because he's played in the league before. He didn't enter the auction last year, so therefore he can't play this year. But I think potentially could play next year. Nagraj, you can correct me if that's wrong.
Post 27, yeah, from the 27 season. Tell me one thing, actually, Matt. One thing. I can't locate it. Jamie Smith, did he enter the auction or not last year?
He didn't, but I believe that because of the fact that he has never played in the IPL before, that means he is eligible this year. That's
because I feel that franchises might go for him. He's one player who kind of fits a lot of, keeper, batter, power hitter. Really hits the ball well. So
yeah, he's not had a great year for England in white ball cricket, but he obviously showed what he's capable of at times during that Test series against India, and that sort of thing doesn't go unnoticed. So yeah, let's keep our eyes peeled.
I just want to ask about Ben Duckett as well.
I think he did enter the auction last year. As I remember, I think he was scoped out as a possible replacement and turned it down, but I think he'll be in the mix.
I want them.
Yeah, he was at the auction. He went unsold. Yeah. So yes, he can be around. All right. Questions still coming in, but we have to call time now. I think we've got less than 20 overs of action left potentially in the Kolkata test, for which we have to be back in the morning. So Raunak might fall asleep right now. I could too. So we will call time here. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Lots of questions also on forget everything else. Who will buy RCB? All those things will be answered as time progresses.
Just to say, we will of course pick up things closer to the auction. And Nagraj, correct me, is the trade window still open? When does the trade window open now?
Yeah, it opens, I think, from tomorrow. It opens from tomorrow. Oh, yeah,
Correct.
and goes on till a month before the IPL starts.
No, I thought the trade window opens after the auction. No, it opens from tomorrow. You can still trade.
Till a week before the auction, I think.
Okay, so from now till a week before the auction, trades can still happen.
And
And
then post
And
auction to a month before the tournament starts, it will happen, but you cannot trade the players bought at the auction.
okay,
26
correct.
auction.
Very good. So that's an important bit of information. So Nagraj is still going to be busy. And second, that we will pick up a lot more chatter going closer to the auction, where we will have some very special guests. I would love to tell you who they are, but because of Tom Moody's decision to join the Super Giants, we now have to start
yeah,
looking. So we'll find somebody.
yeah, it's a season of heavy duty releases for us at ESPN Cricinfo. Tom Moody, Varun Aaron, so much of our IPL 2025 cast. We will have to try and find someone to fill in those shoes. We'll be on that hunt, but we'll be back very soon. Thank you for your company on Chatter. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. See you the next time.
Good one.